Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. There are now over 2,000 of you, so thank you for subscribing. Most of you came from the Jeremy Clarkson Alfa Romeo video, so I thought since there's so many of you new people here, I would do a Q&A so you can get to know me better, and I can explain all the cool shit that I get to call a job, and also answer your questions about what the trio are like. So I posted on DriveTribe and told you guys to ask me anything, and you sent in your questions in spade loads. So thank you very much, and yeah, let's go through them and see what you guys want to know. Okay, the first question is actually from Reddit. It's from 1JMCP, and it is simply, what do you do at DriveTribe? Well, my job title right now is Head of Video. I started at DriveTribe as a content editor, which is just the sort of lowest level of writer, a motoring journalist, and I've slowly worked my way up. There came a point where a presenting role was kind of open, and I went for it, and now Head of Video. Okay, next one is Susanna Gates, and she's asking, how did it all start? How did I get my job at DriveTribe? And do you have any advice for someone who wants to work as a motoring journalist, for example, at DriveTribe? Well, thank you, Susanna. How did it all start? I was studying engineering at uni, mechanical engineering, and I got to my third year out of 5 and decided that I didn't actually want to be an engineer. I enjoyed engineering, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do as a living. So I went back to basics. What made me happy? What could I do as a job that would make me the happiest? And it was driving cars. And suddenly you have two options. You have being a racing driver or being a motoring journalist. And being the age of what, 20, 21, you're not going to start a racing career feasibly from that age. So I thought, I can write a bit. I know the technical stuff from my degree, let's start doing some writing. So I sent out some emails to try and get some work experience, and I ended up getting work experience down in London at Auto Express and at Car Throttle. The Auto Express one went really well. I then went to Car Throttle and I really enjoyed it there. And they seemed to like my stuff, so much so that they actually offered me some freelance work while I was at uni doing sort of technical articles for Car Throttle. I then spent a couple of summers down in London covering for the guys at Car Throttle, and it got to the end of uni, and I was like, okay, I need to find a full-time job now. So I looked at what was there, and there was a job at Auto Express, sitting waiting, a content editor job, but I hit up the guys at Car Throttle to see whether I could just slip into a full-time job there. And unfortunately, they just weren't in the position to be able to take anyone on, so I had to go for the Auto Express job. So I went, I interviewed for it, and I got it. And I was 2 weeks away from starting at Auto Express magazine as a writer. And then I got a DM on Twitter from the then head of content at this website called DriveTribe that had just started up. And they said, we liked your stuff for Car Throttle, would you like to come and work for us? So I had a quick interview with some of the guys at DriveTribe, and before I knew it, I was suddenly content editor at DriveTribe. So there you go. Advice on working as a motoring journalist. Try to stick out from the rest. So many people want to drive cars for a living, especially the fast stuff. And so many people do blogs and now vlogging, YouTubing, Instagramming. It's become very saturated in this world of social media. So you need to have something that just takes you above the rest. For me, it was a mechanical engineering degree. It was a 5-year degree which gave me that technical side. You don't need to be an absolute grammar whiz kid to get a job in motoring journalism, but it is helpful if you can string a sentence together and not have an editor hacking into your stuff. Another bit of advice I'd give is just to create as much content as you can. There's no such thing as too much content. Blogging, videos, Instagramming, like just go for it. Don't hold back. Don't try and be a perfectionist. It's not how things work these days. It is, well, I say that. Volume is a good thing, but it can be complete and utter dribble. It still needs to be decent, but just go for it. Just sit in front of a camera like I am now. get a GoPro in your car, start writing, hit up dealerships, hit up whoever you need to get into the cars you want to get in, and just start creating content. If you can apply for a job and hand over a portfolio of all the stuff you've been doing, it just shows effort. It shows that you really care about what you're doing and you care about your future career. You want to get stuck in. If you just kind of swing up to a job interview, maybe even with a university degree, but you've not really got much experience, you've not really gone and grafted in the car industry, if I was interviewing you, I'd be a little bit worried. So if you've got a local car community or anything that you can start writing about, to be honest, DriveTribe is a fantastic place to do that. If you've got a local car meet that you can cover, a race that's going on, or on your own car, you've got a car down in the garage, maybe even your parents' car, just start creating content with it and put it up on DriveTribe, and who knows what can happen. All it takes is the right person to stumble upon your content at the right time, and that's you. You're good to go. Good luck for everyone that's trying to get into motoring journalism. It's not easy. You have to get lucky sometimes, but someone's got to do it. Okay, Aaron Hussein is asking, hi Mike, what is the typical day in the life for you like? It kind of splits into two. Since I'm heavily involved in video and production, there can either be production planning going on, or it could be the day of a shoot. So let's start with, I guess, a normal day, which is just production planning. We have what's called flexible working hours at DriveTribe. So the staple hours are 9 till 6, but you can go plus or minus an hour either way. So I make the most of that. So I start at roughly 10 o'clock and I finish roughly at 7 o'clock, normally much later than that when I've got something to get cracking with. So we have all our meetings normally in the morning, so between 10 and midday we'll have meetings, and then there can be client meetings that go further into the day. So one of the main revenue streams for DriveTribe is commercial video. You may have seen videos pop up on any of our social channels that have hashtag ad or paid promotion beside them. That is how we make a big chunk of our revenue. So we will have meetings with clients throughout the day, either clients that we're involved with at the time or prospective clients that we're pitching ideas at throughout the day. And then we have additional meetings on top of those internally to kind of suss out what happened in the meeting, what we're thinking about this commercial deal coming up, and how we can execute it. On top of that, I'm in charge of the organic video. So non-sponsored, just cool car content that will go on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, to keep our audience happy, because you can't just pummel them with commercial video. You need to do some cool stuff outside of that. Once those meetings are over, I then dive into either production planning or scripting. So I script all my videos, script some of the other videos involving other talent, and I also then do the research of the cars, the research of the locations, to make sure everything is placed for that shoot day. I'm also then hands-on when it comes to the YouTube channel itself. So I'm uploading the videos, I'm sending ideas off for someone to make a thumbnail for me, someone Lucy that does that, sorting out the end cards, the descriptions, the titles, such an important thing in a YouTube video. So yeah, everything video spread out throughout the day, and yeah, there can be some very, very long days. And then on to the other side, the day of a shoot. It's fairly formulaic, very, very early starts and very, very late finishes. We have something called a call sheet, which basically tells you the breakdown of the timetable for the day. And they normally start at, well, roughly 7 a.m. and it's planned to finish at about 5, 6 o'clock. But normally your alarm is set for 4 a.m. and you do not wrap until basically there's no light left for you to film, which these days is around about 8 o'clock. I've yet to have a shoot that's finished early. I've very rarely had a shoot that's finished bang on time. It happens. Problems with the weather, problems with a car, problems with just logistical things, traffic. they can muck about with your call sheet all the time. So there isn't really a standard working day in terms of on a shoot, but yeah, early start, late finish, and just go with the flow. We've never had a shoot that's been totally buggered by any sort of problems. We have just either started mega early or ended mega late. I think the worst we've had back to back is finishing at 4 a.m. and being back up, cameras rolling at 6:30 in the morning. That was a bad one up in Scotland. But yeah, it's not normally that bad, but it's tough. It looks great on the videos. The end result looks fantastic and we're always really proud of them. But yeah, there needs to be some serious graft put in to see these things through. Okay, this question's in from McLaren fan. What are your deadlines like, and what were the questions you were asked in your job interview? My deadlines, I imagine you're asking about YouTube videos. We play it quite tight. We have 2 regular uploads per week on the main DriveTribe YouTube channel. That is Wednesday evening, 7 p.m, and Sunday midday. So those are 2 slots, and it's just a case of I need to graft throughout the week to fill in those slots. Sometimes we will film for a day and we'll get 5 videos out of it. So if the editor worked quick enough, suddenly we have a few weeks worth of content just from one day. Other days can be, well, it's fairly normal. A full day shoot is just 1 video. So that can, a regular video for us probably takes 3 days, 3 and a bit days to fully edit so that everyone's happy. That editing time goes up when it's a commercial video because we need to show it to our client, and that client needs to approve it, and then there can be some changes, more edits, more changes, and then finally signed off. So yeah, plenty of the videos you've seen go up on the DriveTribe YouTube channel have been finished with hours to go to the deadline. I think we've had some that have wrapped at about 5:30, 5:30 p.m. and then gone live at 7 p.m. That's just the way it is. Things go down to the wire quite often. There can be weeks where we're really organised and everything just falls into place, and it happened over lockdown actually. We were weeks in advance, but quickly your schedule just catches up with you and you're back on the sort of stress train. For example, at time of filming right now, we do have a Wednesday upload. I'm filming this on Monday. We do have something ready for Wednesday with James May in it. But we don't have something for the following Sunday. So currently we are, 2-3 days ahead of schedule. And that's quite a good position to be in. Sometimes we start the week on the Monday and that's when the edit for Wednesday starts. So we've got essentially 2.5-3 days to just pump something out for that Wednesday. But of course we have a standard that we need to meet, and we always do. Most times we get comments when we don't, but yeah, we make it work. The other part of this question was what I was asked in my job interview. It was a very casual interview. They asked me about my experience at Car Throttle, which at the time was quite a similar setup to DriveTribe, kind of like a car social media platform. I was asked what cars I was into. I think my answer was the Carrera GT and anything Jaguar. And then I was asked to come up with examples of content. So at that time I was going in as a motoring journalist, so just a straight up editorial writer. And I came up with maybe 3 or 4 articles that if I was to get the job on my first day, I would write those. And they asked a couple of questions about them and how I would write them and stuff like that. So it was basically having, a case study ready to go for them to sit and listen to. And there wasn't a second interview. They just listened to my answers and I was offered the job at the end of the call. So yeah, I must have said something right. So I have had a lot of questions about working for Clarkson, Hammond and May, the famous trio, and I will go through them all. I'm going to start with actually a really interesting one from Stuart Woolley. He has asked, do you feel that working for the Intrepid Trio has elevated your appeal as a journalist, or has it hindered you in some ways, seeing as the Intrepid Trio aren't to everyone's taste? Really interesting question, Stuart. I can honestly say that I have never missed out on an opportunity or been rejected driving a car or had any real problems by mentioning that I work for Clarkson, Hammond and May. It has always been incredibly positive. In fact, I would go as far to say that it works the complete opposite way. You get incredible opportunities and people come to us with cars and people say yes to almost anything within certain limits because you can say you work for Clarkson, Hammond and May, DriveTribe. People know that connection and they want to be part of it. Those guys are just legends in the industry. They have been at the top of the industry for over 20 years now, and I would argue that they are still at the top. So having that connection is just priceless when it comes to creating content, when it comes to making connections in the industry. So to answer your question, yes, I would say it has, I don't know how to word that. You said elevated your appeal as a journalist. I don't know if that's quite the right way to say it, but it has definitely helped, put it that way. Dan Harris has asked, who is the closest to DriveTribe out of Clarkson, Hammond and May? I.e. who spends the most time at the HQ and who does the most for the company? I think something that needs to be understood about these guys is they are incredibly busy. They've got their Grand Tour Amazon show, they've also got their own spin-off shows that they're doing, and they are scripting and organising and interviewing. They're just constantly on the go doing these things. So when we get time with them, which is sometimes, you know, it can be one day a month, we need to just dive in, get the content we need and get out. But it's unbelievable that we get that kind of access anyway. So any of the three, we will grab a camera and do something with them when they have the time. They want to give more to DriveTribe, but they've also got other huge projects going on. So we need to respect that, and our audience needs to respect that, and I think that is the case. The Car Nerd has asked, what was it like meeting the trio for the first time? I didn't meet them all at once. I met them in the order of James May, Jeremy Clarkson, and then Richard Hammond. I am one of those people that as a kid watched all the reruns on Dave, hour after hour. There are numerous episodes and series that I could almost say word for word throughout the script. I was a massive Top Gear fan. So when you're suddenly put in a room and this person walks in that has that voice that you've been listening to for, you know, over 10 years, it is nerve-wracking, a bit stressful, but also just unbelievable. Like, your hero has walked in the room, but you're in this weird position where he's your hero, but he's also technically the company owner / the boss. So you're his employee. So you can't just fanboy. You can't just go up to him and be like, oh my god, and ask all these basic Top Gear questions. What was this like? What was this like? Can you sign this? Can we do a video from Instagram? You can't do that. You need to stay professional. So yeah, meeting James May for the first time was fantastic. As much as it was stressful. Meeting Clarkson for the first time, he came into the old DriveTribe office, the King's Cross one, and he is just this giant of a man in every sense of the word, physically, and just the presence that he brings into a room. I've never felt that before. He's just huge. He's 6'5", but he looks 7 foot. His hands are twice the size of mine. His head is massive. He's just this huge dude. And then he's got that really deep, thunderous voice, again, that you've heard say countless epic lines on Top Gear, and suddenly he's in front of you and potentially chatting to you. So you have to just keep your cool. I've definitely got this thing when I get nervous. I start to, I wouldn't quite say stutter, but I can't quite get my words out properly. And that happened, and still happens sometimes, when chatting to those three guys. And yeah, I just need to take my time and just chill out when I chat to them. When you work with them more, that starts to fade away. So we've worked a lot with James May, worked with him the most, and I would say I'm quite chill in front of James May now. There's still times where he'll ask you a question and, you know, it can sort of fluster you because you're like, oh, James May suddenly asked me something, what's the answer? But yeah, you do start to get used to it. I have met Clarkson a couple of times now, and I'd say I'm nearly at that point with him as well. And same with Hammond. I think all three of them, we've dealt with them enough now that you know what they're like, you know how to speak to them, you know what they like, you know what they don't like, and you just, you get on with it. Meeting Richard Hammond for the first time was epic because at that point you just acquired, and you may have seen the videos, two classic Jags that are now, I imagine, finished being restored. But at the time they were in boxes, rusty and pre-restoration, and I'm a massive Jag man. So I think one thing that is really nice to see when you're chatting to these guys is when you kind of get an inkling that they realise that you know what you're talking about. I think that's quite a nice thing to realise. So when I was chatting to Hammond about his XK120, his XK150, you know, I was asking, is it the 4-speed, is it the 5-speed? Are you doing this modification? Are you doing that? Are you going for a fuel injection? Are you keeping them carbs? Why didn't you go for an XK140? Just asking all these questions sort of differentiates you, and suddenly they're like, oh, you're into what I'm into. For James May, it can be aircraft or model trains or any of the nerdy stuff. For Clarkson, I've not really had much chat with him, but sort of 80s, 90s performance cars, music. I've not really got there yet with him, but those would be the kind of things that you know, they're icebreakers, and you suddenly realise you have something in common, and that can really work in your favour. So yeah, back to the question. What was it like meeting the trio for the first time? Stressful, but very, very cool. A really nice question from Josh Langstaff here. Since joining DriveTribe, what have you enjoyed doing the most, and what do you think has come along? What do you think has come a long way since you started? Great question. The thing I enjoy doing the most is being on shoot now. I was crap at drama at school. I was always far too nervous and I sucked at it. But when you're in front of camera talking about something that you're passionate about, for me that all just goes away. So realising that I could present and that I was okay at it and could work at it and get better, and just having the shoot. I mean, that day, my first ever video for DriveTribe was the Jaguar XJR9, a baptism of fire. It was one of these cases of, right, Mike, you're a presenter now, what do you want to film? And I just immediately chose my favourite car of all time, and I suddenly got yeses from everywhere. And before I knew it, I had a camera crew, the Le Mans winning Jaguar Group C XJR9, and me with a mic on, being like, okay, I need to talk about this now. So that feeling of knowing that, oh, I'm going to be a presenter on the DriveTribe YouTube channel, that was really fulfilling for me. I sort of grew up watching the Evo guys, Catchpole, Bovingdon, Richard Meaden, watching these guys driving these performance cars in these epic locations, and that's what I wanted to be. And then suddenly this opportunity came up to be in front of camera and be on the YouTube channel. And I thought, yeah, let's just go for it and see what happens.
You've got these huge, big, chunky switches, so they could be operated at 200 miles an hour with big, chunky racing gloves. First of all, we have the ignition. Everything lights up. Followed by the fuel pumps. Followed by the injectors. And then the starter. 700 brake horsepower, 615 pound-feet torque, and that noise! Imagine that for 24 hours! Bloody hell.
I don't know how after that first video I was allowed to do more, but 2 years later it's all going really well. So yeah, being in front of camera on DriveTribe is definitely my favourite thing. What do I think has come a long way since we started? I think just a vision of what DriveTribe is really cleared up now. At the start, we were touted to be the Facebook for cars, which just doesn't really exist. Car Throttle tried to do it, and then we tried to do a similar thing, and it just didn't work out, because the Facebook for cars is Facebook, the Instagram for cars is Instagram, the YouTube for cars is YouTube. You can't get away from these Leviathan platforms. You have to adapt to them. You don't try and, well, you can try, you might be successful, but it's risky. I think now we've realised that, and we've really just doubled down on what we do well, and now how to make the business function properly, how to make money. And even during this horrific period in 2020, this horrendous year, we're doing really well as a company. We've found our niche, and we've got some great people all throughout the company, and we're really going for it. So I think the thing that's moved on the most is just having a clear vision of what DriveTribe is now and what it will become in the future. I Hear You has asked, what are the trio like as bosses? They're not, I mean, I have a manager, Lucy Brown, who you may know is my manager. But yes, they are the owners of the company. And when you're working with them, when you're in a room filming with them, you need to be on the ball. These guys are at the top of the industry, and they're used to the most professional people in every single area. So the most professional cameramen, script writers, directors, producers. So you need to be on the ball. You need to know your stuff. They will ask you questions in the moment, and you need to know the answer to it. If you don't know the answer, then they'll look for someone else, and you need to be on it. And that is a fulfilling thing, and it's also it can be quite a scary thing. So you just need to prepare. When you're, for example, we've got a day filming with Richard Hammond, and we need to know exactly where he's going to sit, exactly what kind of video it's going to be. If there's a script, we need to have sent it to him. If not, we need to just give him the themes and make sure he fully understands the idea. We need to have simple stuff, have batteries charged, and for the mics, for the zoom, for the cameras, everything needs to be obviously on a smaller scale, but everything needs to be as if they were presenting on the Grand Tour, obviously just on a smaller scale. So yeah, you just need to be on it, and you get used to that. You get used to what level you need to operate on, considering who you're dealing with. Jacopo Niuta, apologies if I've totally butchered your name there. You've asked, how is your relationship with Clarkson, Hammond and May? Well, I guess I've talked about kind of how much time we get with each of them. So I definitely have the best relationship with James May out of the three, and that may be simply because I've spent more time with him, or we have a lot in common. We like air fixes, we like model trains, we like talking about World War II Messerschmitts. We have quite different car choices, but we both have, a decent amount of knowledge about cars, so we can chat away about it. So yeah, I chat away to him when we're shooting with him. We go to the pub sometimes for lunch mid-shoot or after shoot, and it's a good laugh. Yeah, he's a really, really cool guy, exactly like you'd expect him to be. When people ask what he's like, I'm kind of like, he's your cool, friendly uncle that you want to go and chat to at your family Christmas. As I've mentioned before, my dealings with Hammond have been more brief than they have been with May, but we chat about Jags, because it turns out Hammond is actually a bit of a Jag man, and I very much am. So whenever I'm in front of Hammond, I'll always make sure to get an update on his XK120, his 150, whatever he's been working on. Clarkson, the first time I met him, I was with a group of DriveTribe people, so there was no chance he would even remember who I was. But the second time, which was the most recent one, which you guys may have seen the video on the DriveTribe YouTube channel, I drove his Alpha, and he definitely knew who I was then. So the way I look at that video and that situation is that if we had turned up on the day at his farm, taken his Alpha, filmed with it, and then left, I wouldn't have had any interaction. But the fact that we took the Alpha, Jeremy noticed and asked, where the hell is my Alpha? And then there was the exchange of, please do not drive my Alpha. We then, that worked itself out, and then we chatted about how we could film the Alpha, and it was all good in the end. So having that interaction, although initially negative, that will have had an impact. If he sees me again, he will know that's that employee that drove my Alpha. So although there was some anger and some pissed off people, I think in the long run, that interaction will have helped quite a lot. And, well, I guess I've kind of explained it, but the question below that is from Benjamin Lumsden. Why didn't you get permission from JC to drive his Alpha? Are you not colleagues? We are technically colleagues. I thought I did have permission to drive Jeremy's Alpha. I asked Lisa, his girlfriend, and it was all good. Threw me the keys, in I went, drove it off. It was only once I had driven it 200 yards down the road, and we were on a break for lunch, that Jeremy drove up to us in his Range Rover and asked where his Alpha was. So I thought I did have permission. I thought that order would have come from Jeremy down to Lisa to me. But it turns out that that wasn't the case. And yeah, as I say, it was all sorted out. We did film with the car. I asked afterwards, can we film with it statically? He was like, absolutely, okay. Just don't want people driving it, but otherwise completely fine. So he was a totally chill guy in the end. But when you've asked why didn't you get permission, I thought I did have permission. So there you go. Maybe it's worth asking more than one person, but I just didn't feel like I had to, really. Next question is Greg Clement. Out of Clarkson, Hammond and May, who is the most likely to forgive you if you scratch their car on a shoot? James May, because first of all, he has many cars. And he comes off as if he's like really anal about keeping his cars clean. But I honestly think just the way he is, for example, we did a shoot with his Alpine. If I'd come back with a little ding on the back wing, he would have been okay about it. He wouldn't have gone mental. I would have wanted to sort it out myself. Get it repaired and get it back to as he left it. But he wouldn't shout or anything. He'd be chill. And on to Oran Anderson. How would you describe James May in one word? Interesting. I think is the word I'd use, which seems like a bit of a bailout, but I mean interesting in terms of like genuinely you want to sit and just listen to him, because he just has anecdotes for absolutely everything and just has this like general knowledge about everything as well. Yeah, fascinating guy. Tejas Kochka, what made you fall in love with Le Mans cars so much? It's honestly hard to think. I only got into Le Mans quite late on in terms of my sort of petrol head development. The thing that got me into cars was my dad. He restores classic cars as a hobby, and he took me to classic car shows. So that kind of got me into cars in general. Watching Top Gear then elevated things, got me into modern cars, supercars, sports cars. And then at some point, so I was always a Jaguar fan, and I think it was at some point during me looking up Jaguar cars, I came across the XJR9. I came across this purple, yellow, and white race car that had Jaguar on the side, and I was like, "What is that? It looks amazing." Didn't look like a Jag I'd ever seen before, but it had Jaguar on the side, so it must be something. And I started researching into it, and the stats just blew me away. All the downforce, massive V12 engines, the drivers that drove them, the fact that they won twice. I'd been really into the older Jags, the older Le Mans Jags, the C types and D types, and then later the what the hell was the XJ13. So I was really into them, the Acuria Cost cars, and then suddenly there was these other successful racing Jags. And then I started to delve in. I was like, wait a minute, they were up against Porsches, Mercedes, Peugeots, Mazdas, and just this world of 80s Le Mans just opened up in front of me. I couldn't get enough of it, and I still can't get enough of it. Whenever I'm at historic racing events, it's the Group C race that I have to be in the stands for. And it's the Group C cars that I'm all over in the pits. They're just from a phenomenal era of motorsport. Barely any restrictions, so much variety, flat sixes, V6s, V8s, V12s, V10s, rotaries, the full shebang. So in terms of how I got into it, I think it was literally just through the internet, through researching Jaguar, exposed me to Le Mans. And then actually, there's a kind of like a follow-on question to this one. Where did I see it? Yeah. Dylan Smith. Hello, Dylan. How close are you to driving an XJR14 for a video? So for some of you people that may not know, the Jaguar XJR14 is potentially the greatest or most capable Group C car ever. It had more downforce than a Formula One car. It had a Formula One engine in it. Martin Brundle, who was one of the Jaguar drivers at the time, cried after his first race in the car because it was so phenomenal. I've heard stats, but I don't know how true it is. I've been told by David Brabham, one of the drivers from the time, that the rear wing, the spoiler on that car, created 10,000 pounds of downforce just at the rear. I think for normal money, that translates as, I want to say 4,000 kilograms, 4 tons of downforce from a rear wing just at the back. And actually that meant there's so much downforce at the back that at over 150 miles an hour the front would come up and the steering would go really light and be quite sketchy. A phenomenal car. And actually, if you wait here a second, my girlfriend is a very good artist and she's actually drawn me an XJR14. There it is in that all purple silk cut livery. And actually, if you want your own race car sketched just like this, DM me on Instagram, Mike_Fernie, and my girlfriend is taking commissions. So if you want your favourite, doesn't have to be a race car, it could be just your favourite car, drawn as well as that, yeah, hit me up and we can sort it out. Helena Lennon has asked, price and practicality no object. What is your ideal car and why? Also loved your interview with Gordon Murray. Thank you, Helena. I had a great time with Gordon, so thank you for watching. Price and practicality no object. The two cars that always come to mind, my two favourite cars of all time, are the Porsche Carrera GT and the Jaguar XJ220. So both top of the heap, thoroughbred supercars, V10 and then twin turbo V6. Both with kind of racing history to them. I think since getting into Le Mans in my sort of late teenage years, I have then become obsessed with road cars that have taken stuff or are in some way connected to Le Mans. So Porsche has its V10 engine that kind of went from Formula 1 to Le Mans and then finished up in the road car. And then the XJ220 was born out of the TWR days, Tom Walkinshaw Racing, which was all intertwined with the Group C program. So yeah, if money's no object, because they're both about £500,000 now, and practicality is no object because one has a clutch that's an absolute nightmare at driving slowly, barely any boot space I think, and then the XJ220, which again will be a nightmare to drive slowly. Those would be the two cars I'd go for. Okay, let's finish with this one. Joshua Gregoire. Again, sorry if I've said that wrong. You have to spend 24 hours in a room with Clarkson, Hammond and May. The only thing in the room is a soiled mattress, a toilet, a plate of chocolate biscuits, a water cooler, and 4 dozen car magazines from the 80s. Who do you choose? This place sounds like James May's bunker. So who do I pick out of the three guys with a soiled mattress, a toilet, a plate of chocolate biscuits? It would be James May. Would it? Oh, no, it would be Clarkson. Because I would like to go through those 4 dozen car magazines from the 80s and just go back through his opinions on those cars. And he probably has some epic stories from 1980s, 1990s press launches back in the day, you know, when things were seemingly much more dodgy and eventful than they are now. So yeah, there you go. Locked in a room for 24 hours. I think I'll go with Clarkson. So guys, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. And that was really fun. Hopefully you guys have learned more about me, more about DriveTribe, how the whole company works, and how video production works at the company. If you have any more questions, do put them in the comments and I will go back through them and potentially make a sort of follow-up Q&A video based on the questions that weren't asked the first time around. So if you have any questions about me, about Clarkson, Hammond and May, about working with them, about DriveTribe, about YouTube, drop them down below and I will answer them. So thanks again for watching, and there is plenty more content coming your way.